Captain Jake Morrison felt his ship shake again as another piece of metal broke off. The Liberty's Dawn had been flying through space for 6 months when the asteroid hit them. Nobody saw it coming because their sensors were old and needed fixing. Now half the ship was damaged and they were floating in empty space with no way to call for help. "How long do we have?" Jake asked his engineer, Tony Blake. Tony looked at his instruments and shook his head. "Maybe 3 days. The air recyclers are broken and we're losing oxygen fast. The engines are dead too." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. There were 12 people on this ship, all good people who trusted him to keep them safe. Now they were going to die because of bad luck and old equipment. "Any ships on the sensors?" he asked Linda Ross, his communications officer. "Nothing, Captain. This part of space is empty. No colonies, no trade routes, nothing." Jake had been a ship captain for 15 years. He had seen friends die in space before. But this felt different. This felt like the end. The ship shook again. Through the windows, Jake could see pieces of their hull floating away into the darkness. The asteroid had hit them near the engine room, and the damage was too much to fix with what they had. "Wait," Linda said, looking at her screen. "I'm getting something. A ship maybe 2 hours away." "Human?" Jake asked. "No, sir. The signal is weird, not like anything I've seen before." Jake felt his heart sink. Unknown aliens in empty space usually meant trouble, but they had no choice. "Send a distress signal, universal frequency. Tell them we need help." They waited. Jake watched the oxygen levels drop on his screen. 2 hours felt like forever when you were running out of air to breathe. Finally, a voice came through their speakers. It was deep and strange, speaking in broken English. "Human ship. I am Zeftar of the Wandering Current." "Why do you call to me?" Jake grabbed the microphone. "This is Captain Morrison of the Liberty's Dawn. We're damaged and losing life support. We have 12 people who will die without help." There was a long silence. Jake could hear his crew breathing. In the quiet bridge, everyone was scared. "I am Vorthak," the voice said finally. "My people do not help other species. This is our way." Jake felt his hope disappear. "Please. We're not asking for much. Just some air recyclers or a tow to the nearest station." Another long silence. Jake could see on his screen that the other ship was getting closer. It was big, maybe twice the size of his own ship. The design was strange, with curves and angles that didn't look human. "You are far from your homeworlds," Zeftar said. "What do humans do in this empty place?" "We're explorers," Jake replied. "We map new systems and look for planets where people can live." "Explorers die in space," Zeftar said. "This is the way of things." Jake's engineer, Tony, tapped him on the shoulder. "Captain, we're down to 2 days of air now, maybe less." Jake keyed the microphone again. "Look, I don't know anything about your people or your ways, but we're going to die out here if someone doesn't help us. I'm begging you." The alien ship was close enough now that they could see it through the windows. It was beautiful in a strange way, with smooth metal that seemed to change color in the starlight. Jake had never seen anything like it. "My ship has extra life support systems," Zeftar said slowly. "But helping you goes against everything my people believe." "Why?" Jake asked. "Young species like humans always forget debts. You take help when you need it, then disappear when it is time to repay. Better to let nature take its course." Jake felt angry, but he pushed the feeling down. This alien was their only chance. What if I promised that humans would remember? What if I gave you my word that we would repay this debt? Zeftar laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Words are air, human. They blow away in space." Jake looked at his crew again. Linda was crying quietly. Tony was checking the air recyclers for the 100th time. The others just sat and waited to die. "Then what would you accept?" Jake asked. "What would make this debt real?" The alien ship moved closer. Jake could see lights moving inside it. "Records," Zeftar said finally. "Formal records that cannot be erased or forgotten. But your species does not keep such things." "You're wrong," Jake said. "We keep records of everything. Every mission, every contact, every debt we owe. It's how we work. There was another long pause. Jake held his breath. I will help you, Zeftar said at last. But only because I am old and tired of following rules that may be wrong. Do not make me regret this choice. The next 6 hours were busy. The alien ship, the wandering current, connected to the Liberty's Dawn with a flexible tube. Zeftar himself came aboard, wearing a suit that let him breathe their air. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and large eyes that seemed to see everything. He didn't talk much as he worked. His hands moved quickly over their broken systems, fixing things that Tony couldn't figure out. The air recyclers started working again. The engines came back online, at least enough to move the ship. There is a human station 3 days from here, Zeftar said when he was finished. You can reach it now. Jake stood in the cargo bay as the alien prepared to leave. How do we repay this debt? Zeftar looked at him for a long moment. You do not. Your species will forget about me before you reach your station. This is the way young species work. You're wrong, Jake said. I'm going to make sure this debt is recorded properly, in our official logs, in our ship's computer, and in Earth's central database. The debt will be there forever. Forever is a long time, human. Not long enough to forget someone who saved 12 lives. Zeftar left without saying goodbye. His ship disconnected and moved away into space. Jake watched it go until it was just another star in the darkness. True to his word, Jake recorded everything. The exact time and date, the location in space, Zeftar's name and ship, what he had done for them. When they reached Minerva Station, Jake sent the full report to Earth's Archive of Outstanding Obligations, a government office that tracked all debts between humans and other species. Most of his crew thought it was just paperwork, but Jake knew better. Somewhere out in space, an old alien had saved their lives when he didn't have to. That meant something. That would always mean something. The debt was recorded and filed away. Jake never expected to see Zeftar again. None of them did. They were wrong. 27 years had passed since Zeftar helped the human ship. He was old now, even for his people. His gray skin had wrinkles and his large eyes moved slower than before. The wandering current was old too. The metal hull had scratches from many years in space, and some of the systems needed constant repair. Zeftar still traveled between the stars, buying and selling rare things. But the galaxy had changed. War was coming to every corner of space. The Krex Empire was taking over planet after planet, and nobody could stop them. The Krex were different from other species. They did not trade or make deals. They just took what they wanted. If a planet fought back, they destroyed it completely. If a planet surrendered, they made slaves of everyone who lived there. Zeftar's homeworld was called Vorthak Prime. It was a beautiful place with tall cities and great libraries full of old books. The Vorthak people had lived there for thousands of years, keeping to themselves and bothering nobody. But the Krex came anyway. Zeftar was in space when it happened. He saw the Krex warships surround his homeworld. He listened to the radio messages as his people tried to surrender. The Krex did not care about surrender. They bombed the cities and burned the libraries. In 3 days, everything Zeftar had ever known was gone. Most of his people ran away to distant stars or became slaves. But Zeftar chose a different path. He became a smuggler. It was dangerous work for an old trader. Zeftar used his ship to move people away from Krex attacks. He carried supplies to fighters who were still trying to fight back. He flew through empty space and asteroid fields where Krex ships could not follow. The wandering current was perfect for this work. It was fast and quiet, and Zeftar knew secret routes through space that even the Krex had not found. He saved hundreds of people over the years. Families with children, old scientists with important knowledge, young fighters who wanted to keep fighting. Zeftar never thought about the human debt during these years. Captain Morrison and his crew were probably dead by now. Even if they were alive, they would have forgotten about one old alien who helped them long ago. This is how all young species worked, Zeftar believed. But the smuggling work was getting harder. The Krex were learning his routes and setting traps. Their ships were faster now and they had better sensors. Zeftar had to be more careful with every trip. The end came in the Cygnus sector. Zeftar was carrying medicine to a hidden base where resistance fighters were hiding. The medicine was for children who were sick because of Krek's poison weapons. Without it, 20 kids would die. Zeftar thought he was being careful. He used an old route through an asteroid field that he had used many times before. But the Kreks were waiting. 3 Kreks attack ships came out of the asteroids like hunting animals. They were sleek and black, built only for fighting and killing. The Wandering Current was not a warship. It had some shields and could run fast, but it could not fight 3 Krek ships and win. "Fourth Act ship, stop your engines," came the Krek's commander's voice over the radio. "Surrender, and we will make your death quick." Zeftar did not answer. He pushed his engines to full power and tried to run. The Wandering Current shook as Krek's weapons hit the shields. Sparks flew from broken control panels. The lights went out and came back on. One engine died. Then another. The ship was slowing down and the Krek ships were getting closer. Zeftar saw a small moon ahead. It was gray and lifeless with no air and no water. But it had caves and valleys where a ship might hide. It was his only chance. He aimed the Wandering Current at the moon and held on. The ship hit the ground hard, bouncing and sliding across the rocky surface. Metal screamed against stone, the front window cracked. Systems failed one by one. When the ship finally stopped, Zeftar was alive but badly hurt. His left arm was broken and he had cuts on his face. The ship's hull was cracked open in 3 places. The engines were completely dead. The Krek's ships circled the moon for hours looking for him. But the crashed ship was hidden in a deep valley between tall rocks. The Krek sensors could not find it. After a day, they gave up and left. Zeftar tried to fix his ship, but the damage was too great. The communication system was broken, so he could not call for help. The engines were smashed beyond repair. The life support system was failing slowly, but surely. He had food for maybe 2 weeks, water for 10 days. After that, he would die alone on this empty moon, forgotten by everyone in the galaxy. Zeftar sat in his broken ship and thought about his life. He had been a good trader in peaceful times. He had helped many people during the war. But none of that mattered now. The Kreks would win in the end, and nobody would remember what he had tried to do. He thought about his home world and his people. All gone now. He thought about the children who needed the medicine he was carrying. They would die too, because he had failed to deliver it. On the 3rd day, Zeftar found the medicine containers were not broken. The boxes were dented, but the bottles inside were still good. He laughed, but it was a sad sound in the empty ship. He had the medicine that could save 20 children, but no way to get it to them. The days passed slowly. Zeftar's food ran low, then ran out. His water was almost gone. The air recyclers were making strange noises and would stop working soon. He spent his last days looking through his personal things. Old books from his home world, pictures of places he had visited, records of all the trades he had made over the years. At the bottom of an old storage box, he found something he had forgotten about. It was a data crystal with the complete records of his encounter with the human ship 27 years ago. Everything was there. The humans' names, their ship, what he had done for them. Zeftar held the crystal and smiled. Captain Morrison had promised that humans would remember the debt, but Zeftar knew better. Young species always forgot. The human was probably dead anyway, and even if he was alive, he would have more important things to think about than one old alien traitor. The life support system made a grinding noise and stopped working. Zeftar put the data crystal back in its box and closed his eyes. He had done his best in a galaxy that did not care about honor or promises. That would have to be enough. He waited to die, certain that nobody in the vast universe even remembered his name. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez was drinking coffee on the bridge of the Defiant Strike when the strange message arrived. She had been in the human space navy for 12 years, but she had never seen anything like this before. The message came from Earth, from a place called the Archive of Outstanding Obligations. Amy had heard of it before but never paid much attention. It was just a government office that kept track of debts and promises between humans and aliens. "Ma'am," said her communications officer, Danny Park. "You need to see this. It's marked urgent." Amy read the message on her screen. It was full of numbers and codes that meant nothing to her. But at the bottom was something interesting. A name, Zeftar. A species, Vorthak. A ship, Wandering Current. And a debt that was 27 years old. "What does this mean?" Amy asked. "I'm not sure," Danny said. "But look at this part. Our long-range sensors picked up a Vorthak ship signature in the outer Cygnus sector. The computer thinks it might be the same ship from this old debt record." Amy stared at the screen. The Cygnus sector was dangerous space, full of Krex patrol ships. No trader would go there unless they were desperate or crazy. "Get me Commander Sullivan," she said. Pete Sullivan was her boss, a man who had been fighting the Krex for 15 years. He was tough and smart, and he never wasted time on stupid things. When Amy showed him the message, she expected him to laugh and tell her to ignore it. Instead, he got very serious. "This is real," Pete said. "I know about this debt. Captain Morrison was a good man. He died fighting the Krex 5 years ago, but before he died, he made sure this debt was properly recorded. Sir, with respect, this was 27 years ago. The alien is probably dead by now." Pete looked at her with hard eyes. "Rodriguez, do you know why other species are starting to trust us in this war? Because we fight well? No. Because we keep our promises. When we say we'll do something, we do it. When we owe someone a favor, we pay it back. That's why aliens are starting to work with us instead of just surrendering to the Krex." Amy nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand. "I want you to take the Horizon Runner and a small crew," Pete continued. "Find this Zeftar. If he's alive, help him. If he's dead, recover his body and give him a proper burial. Either way, we pay our debt." "Sir, the Cygnus sector is crawling with Krex ships. We could lose people on this mission." "Maybe. But we'll definitely lose something more important if we start ignoring our debts. Get going, Commander." Amy picked her crew carefully. She took Laura Chen, the best medic on the ship. She took Carlos Martinez, an engineer who could fix anything. She took 4 Marines led by Sergeant Bobby Torres, and she took Danny Park because he was good with alien languages. The Horizon Runner was a fast ship built for scouting behind enemy lines. It had good shields and could run away from trouble quickly, but it was not built for fighting big battles. The trip to the Cygnus sector took 4 days. Amy spent the time reading everything she could find about the Vorthak species and about the old debt. Captain Morrison had written a detailed report about what happened. The alien named Zeftar had saved 12 human lives when he could have just left them to die. "Why would he do that?" Carlos asked when Amy told the crew the story. "His own. People told him not to help other species. Maybe he was just a good person," Laura said. "Some people help others even when it's hard. They had to be very careful in Krex space. The Horizon Runner used all its stealth systems to avoid enemy patrols. Twice they had to hide in asteroid fields while Krex warships passed by. Finally, they reached the coordinates where the sensors had detected the Vorthak ship signature. It was a small solar system with 1 yellow star and 6 planets. None of the planets could support life. "There," Danny said, pointing at his sensor screen. "Third planet, moon number 2. I'm getting metal readings from the surface." Amy looked through the ship's telescope. The moon was gray and covered with craters. In one deep valley, she could see something that might be a crashed ship. "Take us down, but stay ready to run if this is a trap," she ordered. The Horizon Runner landed near the crashed ship. Amy could see right away that it was badly damaged. The hull was cracked and one whole section was torn open. No lights were showing in the windows. "Life signs?" she asked Laura. The medic checked her instruments. "Maybe. Something very weak in the front section of the ship. Could be a person, could be just background radiation." Amy put on her environmental suit and took Carlos and 2 Marines with her. The crashed ship was bigger than it looked from the air. The name Wandering Current was written on the side in strange alien letters. They found a hole in the hull and climbed inside. The ship was dark and cold. Their helmet lights showed broken equipment and floating debris. The air was thin and smelled strange. This way, Carlos said, following his scanner toward the life sign reading. They found Zeftar in what looked like the ship's control room. He was sitting in a chair, very still, with his eyes closed. Amy thought he was dead until she saw his chest move slightly. The alien looked very old and sick. His gray skin was pale and he was much too thin. There were old injuries on his face, and arms that had healed badly. "Zeftar?" Amy said through her suit's external speaker. The alien's large eyes opened slowly. He looked at the humans like he was seeing ghosts. "Who are you?" he asked in a weak voice. "What do you want?" "My name is Amy Rodriguez. I'm with the Human Space Navy. We came to find you." Zeftar laughed, but it sounded more like coughing. "Humans, in this empty place. Are you lost?" "No, sir. We came here on purpose. We came because of a debt." The alien's eyes became more focused. "What debt?" 27 years ago, you helped a human ship called Liberty's Dawn. The captain was Jake Morrison. You saved 12 human lives that day." Zeftar stared at her for a long time. "Morrison is dead?" "Yes, sir. He died fighting the Creks. But before he died, he made sure your help was recorded in our official files. The debt has been waiting all this time." "Impossible," Zeftar whispered. "Young species do not remember old debts. Humans do," Amy said. "We always remember." Laura was already working with her medical equipment. "He's badly dehydrated and malnourished, probably been without proper food and water for weeks. But he'll live if we get him back to the ship." "Can you move?" Amy asked Zeftar. The old alien tried to stand but fell back into his chair. "My ship is broken. I have been waiting to die." "Not today," Amy said. "Carlos, can we get his personal things?" "Already on it, Commander." They carried Zeftar to the Horizon Runner and put him in the medical bay. Laura gave him water and nutrients through an IV tube. As his strength returned, his eyes became clearer. "Why?" he asked Amy when she came to check on him. "Why risk your ships and your people for one old traitor?" "Because Captain Morrison said we owed you a debt. Because keeping promises is important to us. Because it's the right thing to do." Zeftar was quiet for a long time. "I thought all young species were the same. I thought you would forget." "We don't forget our friends," Amy said. For the first time since they found him, Zeftar smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "Then perhaps I was wrong about humans," he said. "Perhaps I was wrong about many things." News of Zeftar's rescue spread faster than anyone expected. Within days, every human ship in the sector knew the story. A 27-year-old debt had been tracked across half the galaxy and paid in full. One old alien traitor had been saved, because humans remembered a promise. Admiral Lisa Cooper read the report while sitting in her command chair aboard the battleship Thunder Bay. She was in charge of all human forces in the Cygnus sector, fighting a war that seemed impossible to win. The Creks had more ships, better weapons, and no mercy for anyone who stood against them. But this story about the rescued alien made her think. Maybe humans had something the Creks did not have. Maybe their habit of keeping track of old debts could become a weapon in this war. "Get me Commander Rodriguez," Lisa ordered. Amy Rodriguez appeared on the main screen a few minutes later. Behind her, Lisa could see the medical bay of the Horizon Runner where the alien was recovering. "Commander, I want you to bring your passenger to my ship. I think he might be useful to us." "Yes, ma'am, but Admiral, he's not a fighter. He's just an old traitor." "Sometimes old traitors know things that fighters don't," Lisa replied. When Amy brought Zeftar aboard the Thunder Bay, Lisa was surprised by how frail he looked. The alien was thin and moved slowly, like someone who had been sick for a long time. But his large eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Thank you for saving my life," Zeftar said when they met in Lisa's office. "Thank Commander Rodriguez and her crew," Lisa replied. "I just read the reports, but I'm curious about something. You were smuggling supplies to resistance fighters when you crashed. You know things about the war that we need to know." Zeftar nodded. "I helped move people and supplies for 3 years. I know hidden bases, secret routes, safe planets, But most of those places are probably gone now. Maybe. But you know something more valuable. You know which aliens helped humans during this war. Which ones might be willing to help again? Lisa pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed Krex-controlled space. It covered almost half of all known worlds. Every day, more planets surrender to the Krex, Lisa continued. Not because they want to, but because they think nobody will help them fight back. What if they knew that humans remember their friends? What if they knew we pay our debts? Zeftar looked at the map for a long time. You want to find other species who helped humans. You want to call in old debts. Not call them in, pay them back. There's a difference. Before Zeftar could answer, Lisa's communications officer interrupted them. Admiral, we're getting a message. From someone claiming to be Dr. Kethmore of the Altarian Republic. He says he helped some human refugees and wants to talk about an old debt. Lisa and Zeftar looked at each other in surprise. Put him through, Lisa ordered. The alien who appeared on the screen was tall and blue, with 4 arms and kind eyes. He spoke in careful formal English. Admiral Cooper, my name is Dr. Kethmore. 2 years ago I helped a human family escape from Krex raiders. The father was Commander Frank Williams. I gave them medical care and safe passage to neutral space. I assumed they were dead and my help was forgotten. What changed your mind? Lisa asked. I heard about the Vorthak traitor you rescued. If humans remember a debt that is 27 years old, perhaps they remember smaller debts too. Lisa felt her heart beat faster. Doctor, what kind of help do you need? I have been hiding on a neutral world, continuing my research into Krex biological weapons. I have learned how to make medicines that can protect people from their poison gases, but I need protection and resources to make more of this medicine. Where are you now? Kepler Station, in the Outer Rim. But Krex agents are looking for me. I cannot hide much longer. We'll send ships to get you within the day, Lisa promised. And Doctor, thank you for helping Commander Williams and his family. The debt is recorded in our files. When the call ended, Lisa turned to Zeftar. This is just the beginning, isn't it? The old alien smiled. Humans helped many people during this war. Not because you expected payment, but because it was right. Now those people know you remember them. Lisa was right. Over the next week, more aliens contacted human forces. Each one had a story about helping humans during the war. Each one thought their help had been forgotten. There was Captain Vorth, a Centauri engineer who had repaired human ships damaged in Krex attacks. He offered to sabotage Krex installations using his knowledge of their technology. There was Merchant Silara, a Rigelian trader who had smuggled human civilians away from occupied worlds. She wanted to use her trade connections to gather intelligence about Krex troop movements. There was Pilot Kashan, a Draconian who had guided human convoy ships through dangerous nebula fields. His family was trapped on an occupied world and he needed help getting them out. Each contact came with detailed records, names, dates, places, exactly what help had been given. Everything was recorded in Earth's archive of outstanding obligations, the same office that had tracked down Zeftar. How many more are out there? Amy Rodriguez asked when she visited the Thunder Bay a week later. Thousands, Lisa replied, looking at the growing list on her computer. Maybe tens of thousands. Humans have been exploring space for 2 centuries. We've helped people and people have helped us. All of it recorded, all of it remembered. Zeftar was sitting in a chair, nearby, looking much healthier after a week of good food and medical care. Other species throw away old records when they become inconvenient, but humans keep everything. It seemed like the right thing to do, Lisa said. It was the right thing to do. And now it becomes something more. Lisa was beginning to understand what the old alien meant. These weren't just individual debts anymore. They were connections between species, links that could be used to build something bigger. She called a meeting of her senior officers and showed them the growing network of contacts. We're not just fighting a war anymore, she told them. We're building an alliance based on mutual respect and remembered favors. Commander Rodriguez raised her hand. Ma'am, what about security? How do we know some of these contacts aren't Krex spies? We verify everything, Lisa replied. Every debt, every claim, every story. The archive has detailed records going back decades. If someone claims they helped humans, we can check. And if they're telling the truth, then we help them. Just like they helped us. Zeftar spoke up from his chair. Admiral, there is something you should know. Word of this is spreading beyond just the aliens who contacted you. Others are talking, sharing stories. Species that never worked together before are starting to communicate. What do you mean? I received a message from an old friend, a Vorthak merchant named Telnara. She is organizing other traders to share information about safe routes and hidden supplies. She mentioned humans and their strange habit of remembering debts. Lisa felt a chill of excitement. How many traders is she organizing? Hundreds. Maybe more. The Vorthak trading network extends across the entire galaxy. Lisa looked at the star map again. The red dots showing Krek's territory suddenly seemed less threatening. Between them were thousands of worlds, millions of people, countless species who might be willing to work together if they knew someone remembered their kindness. Get me a direct line to Earth, she ordered. I need to talk to the archive of outstanding obligations. It's time to see just how many friends humanity really has. As her communications officer worked to establish the connection, Lisa smiled. The Kreks thought they were winning because they had bigger guns and more ships. But they had forgotten something important. They had forgotten that the galaxy was full of people who remembered favors. And humans, it turned out, were very good at keeping track of who owed what to whom. 6 months after Zeftar's rescue, everything had changed. The old alien trader now commanded a mixed fleet of ships from 12 different species. They called themselves the Wandering Current Squadron, named after his old ship. Each vessel was crewed by aliens whose people owed debts to humanity, or who humanity owed debts to. Zeftar's new ship was a sleek, human-built scout vessel with the best stealth technology available. But he was no longer the lonely smuggler he had been before. Captain Vorth flew beside him in a heavy Centauri cruiser. Merchant Silara commanded a fast Rigelian ship loaded with sensors. Dr. Kethmore worked from a mobile laboratory ship, making medicines that protected people from Krek's poison weapons. The network had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Admiral Lisa Cooper received reports every day about new species joining the Alliance, not because humans forced them to, but because they wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. But the real test was coming. Krek's intelligence had learned about the growing Alliance, and they were not happy. The Empire was planning a massive attack on New Geneva Station, the main human stronghold in the outer colonies. If New Geneva fell, the Kreks would have a clear path to Earth itself. Lisa stood on the bridge of the Thunder Bay, watching enemy ships gather on her sensors. 300 Kreks vessels, including 6 of their largest dreadnoughts. Against them, she had 50 human ships and maybe 20 alien vessels from species that had joined the Alliance. It's not enough, said her second-in-command, Captain Rick Palmer. We're outnumbered 6-1. Maybe, Lisa replied, but let's see who else shows up. The Kreks attack began at dawn, station time. Massive battleships emerged from hyperspace like angry metal whales. Fighter squadrons poured out of their landing bays, darkening space with their numbers. The enemy commander sent a message demanding immediate surrender. Lisa ordered all human ships to battle positions. The Thunder Bay and her sister ships formed a defensive line in front of New Geneva Station. Their weapons charged and their shields came online. This is Admiral Cooper to all human vessels, she broadcast. Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for every species that believes in keeping promises. Make every shot count. The battle began with a massive exchange of missile fire. Krek's weapons slammed into human shields while human torpedoes streaked toward enemy ships. The space between the fleets lit up with explosions and energy beams. 2 human destroyers died in the first 5 minutes. A Krek's cruiser exploded when a lucky shot hit its reactor. But the math was simple and brutal. The humans had fewer ships and they were losing the fight. That's when the impossible happened. Admiral, called her sensor officer, Lieutenant Jenny Walsh. I'm reading new hyperspace signatures, lots of them. Krek's reinforcements? Lisa asked, her heart sinking. No, ma'am. The signatures are all wrong. Multiple species, different engine types, and they're broadcasting human alliance codes. Lisa watched in amazement as ships began appearing around the battlefield. Not just a few ships, but dozens, then hundreds. Vorthak traders with their curved hulls and advanced sensors. Altarian research vessels converted into mobile hospitals. Centauri heavy cruisers with massive guns. Rigelian fast attack ships. Even lone Draconian pilots in converted civilian vessels. Each ship carried the same message. They had come to repay old debts to humanity. How many? Lisa whispered. Still counting, ma'am. At least 400 ships now, maybe more. The Krex fleet hesitated. Their commander had planned to fight 50 human ships, not a mixed fleet of 600 vessels from 20 different species. Zeftar's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral Cooper, this is the Wandering Current Squadron. We request permission to engage the enemy. Permission granted, Lisa replied. All Allied ships coordinate with human forces. Let's show the Krex what happens when the galaxy works together. The Biquar battle that followed was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Vorthak traders used their knowledge of hyperspace to appear behind Krex lines. Centauri engineers jammed enemy communications. Altarian doctors broadcast medical advice to damaged ships. Rigelian merchants shared targeting data from their extensive sensor networks. But it was Zeftar who struck the decisive blow. His small ship, invisible to most sensors, slipped through the chaos of battle toward the largest Krex dreadnought. The massive enemy vessel was directing the entire attack, its powerful computers coordinating hundreds of smaller ships. Zeftar, what are you doing? Lisa called over the radio. That ship has enough firepower to destroy a planet. Paying an old debt, the alien replied calmly. His ship was tiny compared to the enormous dreadnought, like a mouse attacking a tiger. But human engineers had equipped him with the most advanced weapons available. As Krex fighters tried to intercept him, Allied ships moved to provide cover. Vorth's Centauri cruiser smashed through a squadron of Krex fighters. Silara's Rigelian ship used electronic warfare to blind enemy sensors. A dozen other vessels, each one crewed by people who owed debts to humans, formed a protective formation around Zeftar's attack run. The old trader's ship reached the dreadnought's hull and fired every weapon he had. Specialized human bombs designed to overload enemy shields. The massive Krex vessel shuddered as its defenses failed. Now, Zeftar called. Every Allied ship in range opened fire on the defenseless dreadnought. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles converged on the enemy flagship. The great ship's hull cracked, then exploded in a ball of fire that lit up half the battlefield. Without their command ship, the Krex fleet fell into chaos. Individual captains tried to retreat, but they found themselves surrounded by enemies they had never expected to face. Species that had never worked together before were suddenly fighting as a unified force. The battle ended not with a dramatic final explosion, but with Krex ships simply disappearing into hyperspace. Those that could run, did run. Those that couldn't, surrendered or died. When the fighting stopped, Lisa looked around at her mixed fleet in amazement. They had won against impossible odds, not through superior firepower, but through cooperation and trust. Zeftar, she called over the radio. How did you know they would come? How did you know so many species would risk their ships for us? The old alien's voice was tired but happy. Because you taught me something, Admiral. You taught me that some species really do remember their debts. And when word spread that humans always keep their promises, others wanted to be part of that. But why? We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the smartest or the richest. No, Zeftar agreed. But you are the species that remembers. In a galaxy full of broken promises and forgotten favors, you keep track of who helped whom. That makes you valuable friends. Over the following days, as the mixed fleet celebrated their victory, Lisa began to understand what they had built. It wasn't just a military alliance. It was a network of trust that spanned hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. Captain Morrison's simple promise, made 27 years ago to a lonely alien trader, had grown into something that changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The Krex Empire was still strong, but they now faced an enemy they didn't understand. species working together because they trusted each other to keep promises. Zeftar returned to the outer rim, but he was no longer alone. The Wandering Current Squadron had become a permanent force, patrolling the borders between Allied space and Krek's territory. They carried supplies to refugee camps, rescued stranded travelers, and reminded everyone they met that some debts were worth remembering. And in the archive of outstanding obligations back on Earth, clerks continued their quiet work of recording every favor, every debt, every promise made between humans and the thousands of species they had encountered among the stars. They understood now that their job was more important than anyone had realized. They weren't just keeping records, they were keeping the foundation of trust that held the galaxy together.